Hello, my name is Jason Rucker. I wanted to make this video tell my story, my testimony. I want this story to honor God, bring glory to Him. Never made a video before, so I guess I'm a little nervous. I'm also a little bit under the weather, so please forgive me if I'm coughing. I first remember hearing about Jesus, and I mean hearing and I guess knowing Him. I was probably about 8 or 9. It was then I remember I understood there was a love that was fiercer and more powerful than anything we could ever know. I didn't understand all of His word, and of course, I was so young, but I did understand love. Unfortunately, I didn't hold on to that, as all of us tend to do. I strayed. I didn't enjoy school at all. I was always a heavy-set person, and as many people know, in grade school they're pretty merciless towards you if you have any kind of fault or anything they can poke fun at you about, whether that's your name, your looks. I was always a sensitive guy, so I took it to heart, and I just, I didn't get angry. I just got depressed. I dreaded school all through grade school. It did get better once I got to high school. I didn't graduate. Would have graduated in 98. I did not have enough credits to graduate my senior year. Finished my senior year and I was done. I had had enough of it. I guess I was very bitter towards anyone from school, as far as fellow students went. Teachers were always kind to me. I've never understood why people like to fight, why the violence, why hate. When we want to be happy, we want peace. But I'll come back to that maybe later. Out of school, I worked several different jobs. I'm a pizza delivery person at a couple of different pizza places, fast food, scattered factory jobs. I avoided them. I didn't like them. And eventually I just stopped working altogether. I gave up. I gave up on this world. I gave up on myself. Any thoughts of dreams or hopes, I just threw them away. I lived off my family. I mean my parents, my sister, just anyone that would take me in and pay my way. I lived a very shameful life, really, for a long time. I wasn't aware of it for a few years, I suppose, but eventually I was, and I continued that way for years yet. I spent a lot of my early 20s just smoking marijuana, like very heavily. I didn't really do any other drugs. I also was very addicted to pornography for a very long time. I would say that it's like alcohol. So you may be a dried up alcoholic, you're never not an alcoholic. So the same is probably true for that and many other addictions, I'm sure. I lived this way for years, just played video games, stayed home, stayed in my bedroom, wherever I was living. That was typically what I liked to do. I wanted to hide away, avoid the truth of my circumstance, of what I was doing, how I was living, what I was doing to my family, those that loved me, that were all around me. They kept telling me, that I was so smart and I could do something with my life. They tried to encourage me periodically through the years, as one would, right, for someone you love. And I mean, I believed them. I believed that they loved me and that they meant well. But I didn't believe in me. I didn't believe there was hope for me. I sank more into the despair of my solitude, I guess. I knew that Jesus loved me. I didn't understand why, I guess, in the life that I lived. But I knew that in His Word He said that, and I knew He didn't ever lie. I don't even know how I knew that. I've always known that. It feels like I've always known that. Going through life, I don't remember how many times I felt like I just didn't belong here. That I was not like anyone else I knew. Even though, like everyone else, I have my own struggles. I had my own addictions and battles that everyone has in life. So for some odd years, I lived with my dad in Defiance. I lived with my sister and her husband in Antwerp for a couple of years too. And eventually my sister and my dad ended up getting a house together, and I lived with them. Learned about computers. I got pretty good at working with computers. Actually blew up my first 3 or 4 that I owned. Some of them were just scrap computers I found, and I eventually took all the scrap parts and put one together that worked. I thought that if I ever to go back to school, it would be for computers, because I had an interest there, and there's definitely a demand in computers. Every Christmas and every birthday, my dad would get me something. Felt kind of strange, I suppose, because I was a grown man, and Daddy still gets his son something for his birthday, for Christmas, just like I wasn't a grown man. Excuse me. I'm just gonna drink here. I never much cared for drinking, though I did drink some. Never liked the next day, either not remembering what I did or remembering what I did and realizing how much of a fool I'd been. I'm gonna just kind of skip ahead some, because a lot of that's just repetitive. I played video games a lot, watched pornography a lot. I sought that out. More games, more pornography, more marijuana, more, whatever to fill the void in my heart that, I didn't have the courage to face. But I was living with my sister and my dad. My sister just got out of a hard relationship. She was also divorced, or soon to be. And another guy came along. This guy, there was something different about him. That's the only reason I bring it up. So many people that I'd encountered, this guy could definitely see my circumstance, and who could miss it? There's a man here living off of all these other people. He seems somewhat capable to work, but yet he doesn't. I didn't even help around the house. I didn't. I was just that lazy. And I know the despair didn't help, but at some point I became aware of the truth of how lazy I was. I just still stayed that way. But he didn't treat me like I was that person. Matter of fact, he kept encouraging me to help him with things. And if I didn't, he didn't get mad. I guess he was sent by God for me, because no one had ever really done that. Everybody, I guess, always tried the tough love thing, and I'd had that. And guess what? It didn't work. I see people trying that all the time. I try that with my kids today, and I want to smack myself because it's like, hey, that didn't work. That doesn't work. But anyways, this guy, he treated me like a real person, though I don't think I really deserved that. Time progressed, and him and my sister stayed together, and they got more serious. He moved in, and more we talked. Perhaps it's important to say that prior to him moving in, there was some months where, I don't know how many months, but I stayed in my room. I avoided everybody. My own family. I just tried to stay in my room as much as possible. I'd come down to get something to eat, go to the bathroom, occasionally shower. I was not very hygienic. But anyways, after he showed up, he moved in. There's a part. It wasn't long after he moved in. He started talking about. We talked about God a lot. He was definitely a Christian man, and I was a believer. If nothing else, I was a believer. I believed in God. I believed the Bible was true. Wasn't very familiar with it. Kind of was more of an assumption of what it said was true, whether I knew what it was or not. Anyways, we talked many nights, probably about every night, really. A lot of it was very, very religious, very much about God and how good He was, or how His Word impacted our lives for today, or just whatever circumstances called for. Eventually, he brought up this church he had gone to in Bryan. We were living in Oakwood, mind you, so it was a bit of a drive. He didn't go there anymore, except for special occasions, like one he was about to describe to me. It was an event called the Great Banquet. He told me this was a weekend event that you'd go and they provided, your food and your bedding. You'd go on a Thursday night and you'd stay until Sunday, and throughout this weekend you listen to some people talk about some things, bearing their own testimonies, own personal stories and such. And the whole idea was to get closer to Jesus, to get your walk going, I guess, or to start a walk. To back on your walk, whatever. To experience it for the first time, maybe, whatever. Well, he kept talking about it, kept trying to invite me to go. He said, hey, I'll sponsor you. I mean, it wasn't free, but he said, that wasn't a big deal. He didn't care about that. And at the time, my best friend was also living there, and so he would also invite him too. Both of us would say basically the same thing, like, well, we'll think about it. And it was some months away yet. I think my friend, there was really no interest for him to go. He was, at the time, he did not consider himself a Christian. I did, so I guess I had a small interest. But I didn't go. However, my dad did go. I didn't even hardly realize Travis had invited him. That's the gentleman's name that had been such a friend to me. Travis invited my dad to go, and he went. And I can look back and see that was exactly what God's plan was. Because if my dad had not went, I could not have seen what it did for him. See, my dad, he had just recently, prior to that, suffered a bad injury at work that all disabled him. He couldn't work anymore. My dad is like, as far as work habits went, nothing like me. You know, I was one to shirk work. You know, if I could get out of work, I was going to. Now at home, he wasn't as helpful, but I mean, he never missed work. He went to his job faithfully every day, worked his shift, went home, followed the rules, did extra work, helped out. But this injury had really hurt him. He couldn't walk very well. He ended up getting on Social Security disability, and he didn't take it very well, which was to be expected. He'd exercised every day prior to this too, or very regularly he exercised, taking good care of himself. Now he couldn't. I wouldn't have to wonder if it was God's way of saying, hey, it's time to trust in me. But he came back from that weekend, and there was a new energy in him. He got up and helped out around the house, and that was just never like him. Never. I mean, not even when he worked, he rarely did things around the house, really. That was for other people to do. Perhaps that's old-fashioned, but that was what my dad was like. He brought him a paycheck, and somebody else cooked and cleaned, Now he lived by himself. He did those things, of course, to his own liking, I suppose. But anyway, seeing that spark in him like that made me think. It made me more than think. In all honesty, I'd said it to Travis. I was tired of the way my life was, the way I lived. I was so tired of it. I wanted something more, something else, or I wanted to just be done with this world. Fortunately, I didn't believe in suicide. I never did. I always believed that if I did that, I would go to hell. And above all things, I've always wanted to go to heaven and be with Jesus. That has saved me. Because there were times that if I didn't believe that, if I didn't want that, I would have. And I wouldn't have told anybody, I would have just done it. But I did believe that, so here I am. He kept inviting me to that great banquet. There was one every 6 months, twice a year. I remember I accepted his invitation to go to the next one. And I started praying. I started praying every night. I remember talking to God about it every night. God, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of living this way. I don't know what to do, but you do. I'd had this heaviness on me for so long. I'd been used to it. And the closer it drew to that banquet weekend, the lighter I felt. And I kept praying. Every day. Every night. Every night is what it was. Every night before I went to bed, I would pray. I wasn't reading his word, but I was praying to him. And I was seeking him. And, looking back, I was seeking him. And we prayed and talked to him, right? So, and the closer that weekend came, I also started to get a little excited, actually. Because, this heaviness that had been on me for so long was lifting off of me. I was experiencing something I'd never really experienced, and this weekend was coming up. And this is what I've been praying about. I've been asking God, that let this weekend be something to change me forever. Bring me something new to be a miracle. And I went to that weekend. I remember it started on a Thursday night. Travis brought me, and actually my best friend, he went too. Probably mostly because I went and because Travis wouldn't quit bugging him. Remember, he wasn't a Christian. He had been early on in life when he gave up on God. He ended up going to this with me, though. Or we both went. It was very much separate, actually. On Thursday night, he took us in and he took us into these rooms we'd be sleeping in. It's a just big room he shared with a bunch of others, which, I mean, all we did was sleep in there, so there's no never mind. They had showers there and such. It was a church, but it was perfect for this very function. And I'll tell you, I mean, if I described every event, every thing I can remember from it to you, it just could not do justice. I mean, there's these people, not a one of them being paid, that are serving us. They're served us every meal. And then these people that are doing these talks, they're volunteers. I mean, they take some time to prepare for it, but they shared some just deep personal stuff. I mean, stuff that you just don't tell people, you know? I mean, and they're telling all of us this. Just because they want us to experience the love of Jesus. And they have to tell us to, so they can share how they found Jesus. And I don't mean they have to tell us as in like somebody there said, hey, you have to tell, you know. I mean, they definitely encourage you to, but it's up to you how much. And these guys, man, I'd been carrying some things on me. Never mind the way I lived, some things I'd done. And it was there that a couple of gentlemen helped me find healing and forgiveness from God that I'd honestly already had and just didn't know how to ask. Didn't know how to forgive myself. It changed me forever. I remember at one point, in one of these talks, I don't remember exactly which one, my head was just swimming with thoughts. And I walked outside. I wasn't supposed to, but I walked outside. Not to leave, but I needed to think. I needed to talk to God, and that's what I did. I walked outside and I just started talking out loud to Him. And there was no one else around, you know, so I usually try to do that privately. There was no one else around, so I just started talking out loud to God. I said, God, I know you brought me here for a reason. And I can feel it. And I want this change. I'm tired of living the way I've lived. Finished that weekend and went home. My sister, who was supposed to go the very next weekend, which was they're separate. One's men's, one's the ladies' weekends. She asked me how my weekend was, and I said, well, it was life-changing. And I was actually concerned that she might not go, so I really kind of built it up. And unfortunately, I think I kind of shouldn't have. Because for her, her expectations were super high. And then she went, and, well, it didn't meet her expectations. God's not done with her. I wish I could say my story from there just took an immediate drastic turn. And in a way it did. But not like not like you'd think it should. Spiritually, it took a turn right away. You know, every day I was seeking God. I was wanting to praise Him. I would be singing along with some Christian music. I started getting into His Word. I did make a goal. It was like 2 months till my birthday, and I wanted to get my GED before my birthday. I didn't make it, and it did not succeed. As a matter of fact, it was almost another year before I actually did do something. And I started to, in that year, I almost started to fall back into old spiritual habits even. Well, spiritual deadness, I suppose. And I did not want that. God had showed me something different. Among one of the things my dad had bought for me was a nice gaming computer. Over time, built a pretty decent gaming system. And it came to the point where, this thing is where my source of games, porn, whatever my entertainment fancy was, movies, shows, whatever. And for a long time after that banquet, several months, I did not seek any pornography. And I wish I could say I never did too, but that would not be the truth. It was 6 to 8 months after I started looking at it again. And I didn't want that anymore. I remember I'd had a PSP, and I was upstairs in the room looking at that stuff on it. And I'd only wanted it to play games, portable on it, So I got rid of it. I knew if I had it, I would use it for that. And where my computer was, it was downstairs in the living room. So I couldn't actually watch the stuff there. So I would download it and put it on my PSP and take my PSP upstairs. So, that really prevented me from doing anything like that. Knowing about computers, I could do that stuff pretty easy. I modified my PSP to do a lot of things. I wasn't satisfied with that though either. I'd been playing this game online with some friends. Matter of fact, when my friends took it upon himself to buy this game for me at its release, it's because he really enjoyed playing with me, hanging out with me. Oh, excuse me. This game was Diablo 3. And actually I played Diablo 2 and I played Diablo 3, and those games were also a godsend. If I had not been playing those games at that particular time of my life, I don't think I would have seen what the story of that game really was. The story of both these games is one man goes through and where God either doesn't show up or fails. One man defeats the devil by himself. And when I realized that was such a lie. And that is exactly what the message we hear in everything today is. We can do this without God, but we cannot. And we wonder why we're not happy, right? And why we're always trying to find something to fill that void. My next step, I suppose, was actually got serious. I decided to get my GED. I want to go to college. I decided on a college immediately. It was pretty interesting. I just saw a commercial on TV about it. It's Northwest State Community College, and I was like, that's where I'm going to go. So I I got a hold of someone and started some GED classes. I sold my computer. I had a 32-inch monitor. It's quite expensive. And it was a gaming system. It was nice. I had a wireless headset, rechargeable, at my dad's expense. One of the things that I did, I owed my dad a lot of money. I'll get to that in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Well, okay, so I sold this computer because I needed money. I was not going to ask anyone to pay for anything for me. So I did that to borrow my sister's car, where I put all the gas in it, and I paid for my food. And I went to my GED classes, and I went to church. I read God's Word every day, faithfully. Prayed every day. Listened to music, praised Him every day. And I never felt so alive in my life. When I let go, that's when I started living. I only took those classes for 2 months. And the teacher told me I was ready. That's when I started to begin to understand how much God had blessed me. He gave me an understanding for things. There had been a number of people there at those GED classes. There had been one lady there that had been going for years trying to get her GED. A number of others that had been there for months. 2 months, she said I was ready. She said I'd had no problem with that test. Matter of fact, when I took the test, like a placement test for the GED, for the classes, I ranked higher than the standards they had. She said that I couldn't score, she couldn't score me high enough because it only went so high. But I had to do something in that class. And I actually had some issues with commas and apostrophes and some English stuff. So that's what I worked on. And I got stronger in that. A lot better at that stuff. I took the GED test and I had it before my next birthday. I had gotten my GED. In the midst of this, I had also started dating, to be honest, the love of my life. It's a lady I met when I was 18 or 19 years old, and we had dated off and on for years. Well, this time, she was also really trying to find God in her life and to walk with Him. And we decided we were going to try this His way. We had tried it our way. We had tried it our way time and time again, and that had got us nowhere. So we were going to try it His way. We were going to try it doing it the way the Bible says to do it, in all the ways we could honor Him. So we started dating, and I know that God would want me to get married at this time. I'm thinking that, I'm like, God, I know I am a man that needs to get married. You have not given me a gift to be by myself, And there was a night I was just praying and I was talking to God about that right there. And I said, but God, I just want to trust You with this. You know what kind of person I am. You made me. So I want to just give this all to You. I just want to seek You and do what I need to be doing. And let You work that. You know that I need to have a wife. And it's going to be in Your time. I trust You for that. And the next 2 weeks, man, just flew by. It was just amazing, great. And I say 2 weeks because it was 2 weeks later that my mother, she calls me up and says she wanted to speak with me. And I happened to be going to the church that night, and that always meant I stopped by to see her. So, well, at least I stopped by to see my girlfriend before going to church. And I often seen her too. So she wanted to make sure that I stopped by. So I stopped by, and she pulls out this ring. And it's an engagement ring. She tells me the story. There's a story behind this engagement ring. She tells me that a friend of ours, closer to her than me, but had this ring, and that the marriage between him and her did not work out. And though it hurt him deeply, he gave that ring to my mother and told her that he wanted someone to have this ring that it would work for. And she gave me that ring. And I remember I knew what that ring was. In the bottom of my heart, I knew that was a symbol from God as His promise to me that we would get married. And that was a showing of faith, I guess, you know. Not of a win, but of a will. And I was amazed by that. I was just loving how great God is, and that He is faithful, even when we are not. I remember going home that night and just praying over that ring and said, you know, God, I thank you for this promise. I want you to help me not to be consumed by it, though. Remember, I'll put it in my wallet and help me to only think about it when I need to think about it, so I can still serve you. And He did. It wasn't even actually long after that I'd end up, taking that ring to a jeweler, because it had to be sized. It was too small for my wife to be. So it actually worked out that I didn't even have the ring for some time. And I paid for that as well. And it was feeling good paying for stuff and giving up that computer. Though my dad had paid for that computer, that stayed with me. I got my GED in October. Received it in the mail. It was really nice. I knew I wasn't done. I don't know if it was right then or right around then. I know it was very near then that God gave me a date. So I called my girlfriend and I said, hey, I want to get married. And this was no surprise to her. We weren't even dating. We were courting. I told her that from the get-go. I want to court you. And the whole idea of courtship is to see if you're compatible for marriage. I wasn't interested in just casual dating, and neither was she. So I called her up and I said, I've got a date. I told her the date. I said, what do you think? She said, I'm going to follow you. And from then, it was just like, just miracle after miracle of how this happened. Because we didn't really have the money to get married. But I had faith. I trusted that God made me a promise. And God don't break His promises, you know. I don't remember asking much of anyone for anything. But the church we attended, they just started to come together for this. One lady, I know she loaned to my wife now, the dress she wore. I think they had to have it altered just slightly, but she made her bouquet, she made our wedding cake. We had to buy the cake mix. She did a lot of the decorations for us, making them. People came in and helped decorate the church. The pastor, he didn't charge us for the ceremony and provided the meal after. I couldn't believe this. It's like, man, wow, God, this is you. Wow. This is us loving each other. I remember hearing my dad paid for my tuxedo as my wedding gift. As our wedding gift, I suppose. Like that wasn't a big... He'd already given me a gift. Before the wedding, I looked at him and I said, Dad, I have something just huge to ask you, and I'll understand if you can't do this. But it's pretty obvious that no matter what happens with the rest of my life here, I will likely never be able to repay you all that money I owe you. So I wanted to ask you if you would forgive me that debt. And he said, well, you're right. You'll probably never be able to repay me. And he thought about it for probably a minute. And he said, yeah, I forgive you of that debt. And I said, thank you, Dad. I gave him a great big hug, and I could hardly believe it. And then I had to go talk to my sister about the same thing. I said, you've helped me out a lot, and I owe you a lot. And honestly, I could never repay you either. And I gotta ask you if you'll forgive me of this debt, because God says not to have debts, and I don't know if I could ever repay you. And I, of course, told her I'd understand if she couldn't. She thought about it a little bit longer than my dad, but she did forgive me as well. God was making me all new in more ways than I could even know. Of course, the devil was also trying to get in on this. He put doubts in my wife's mind about letting this happen, because she felt like a responsibility that we should be paying for everything. And truly, I understood that. But when there was a need, someone came forward. And isn't that what we're supposed to do? That's what they did. I saw two people that loved each other, were trying to honor God, and wanted to get married. I remember we ran out of drinks at the reception. We had to go up and take pictures. By the time we got down there, they had nothing to drink, and they had almost no food left. We were exhausted too, so everybody stopped and shook my hand and told me how much they loved our wedding vows. I suppose because, especially at the end, I turned around and I told everyone, I said, that if anyone sees us not fulfilling these vows, please let us know. This is important to us. No one ever has, so I hope that means we're living up to it. After that, I immediately started college. The following January, I was enrolled and I started. I had 4 classes. I was going full time. I'd gotten a Pell Grant, and I had to get a couple loans. I got a laptop right away and a tablet. She really probably didn't need the tablet, but the laptop was very much necessary. Could have waited, but I did need one. Sometimes I get a little impatient about things like that, I guess. First semester was probably the toughest. Loved it. I was loved that I loved it. Loved that I loved school. Went back to school and loved it, because I had no good experiences with school, really. High school, grade school, middle school, oh, nightmare. College, oh, I love college. I'm still in college. I should graduate this coming fall. Well, probably keep going too. This might be for my associate's degree in network administration with a focus on computer programming. Like I said, in computers, huh? God has already used it too. My gifts in computers, I guess. My understanding. I took the Compass test, which is the entrance test to get into college, and I scored pretty high. I didn't have to take any of the lower classes. I scored right into college algebra, Comp 1. So many people I knew had to take the lesser math classes, basic comp, or reading understanding, reading comprehensions, Now when I understood that, and I understood again that God had really blessed me with something, and I needed to use it for Him. And I was reading His Word every night, every day and night now. By this time, I'm not sure exactly when I started doing that, but I started every day. I'd pray and I'd read, and I'd end every day and I'd pray and I'd read. And I had an understanding for it. And I mean, at this time, I didn't know that. I'm just reading God's Word, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome, God. Wow, it's amazing how you worked all these things, And I'd be like, He'd just be teaching me by His Holy Spirit, and I'd just be taking it in and loving it, But I wasn't really sharing it with anybody. I was keeping it to myself. And that's part of what this is about. Because I know that's not what He'd have me do. That banquet was in September of 2011. About almost 3.5 years now. It has been 3.5 years. I quit smoking. By His grace, by His power. I'd smoked for 17 years, I think it was. Or 18 years. I started smoking when I was 14, and I quit when I was 32. So yeah. I'm 35 now. That was right around when I got my GED. I quit smoking. Remember, I'd been wanting to quit for so long, and I'd tried, my own way. Then I thought about, how my way doesn't work, And I just think I think the sermon that evening had been about being bold, doing something bold, having faith and trusting in God, I rolled my own cigarettes. So I remember I was outside, and my sister has her own smoking room, I guess, whatever. It's an outdoor patio, but it's enclosed, and it faces the street. I remember looking out there. It was nighttime, and looking out and seeing that the trash was out to be taken the next day. 'Cause trash pickup was the following morning, and I had GED classes, and I had started going to the Disciple House, which someone from the GED classes had invited me to, and I was enjoying that. And I know it was a ministry for people coming out of prison, but I wasn't coming out of prison, but I was enjoying it regardless. It was great. But anyways, this particular night, I remember looking out to that trash can, and it's like, that's going out in the morning. I thought it would be bold to take my cigarette machine, tobacco, and tubes out there and dump them in there. And then go to school in the morning. And I'd be gone while it was being dumped. Because I left early. And I did it. I remember I went out to the living room, I grabbed my tray with all my smoking stuff, put it all on there, and walked out to that dumpster, opened the lid, and dumped it all in there, except I kept the tray. And I had not quite a pack of cigarettes left rolled that I kept. Strangely enough, before that moment, I smoked about a pack a day or so, give or take, you know. I think I had 12 cigarettes in that pack when I threw my machine and everything away. And those 12 cigarettes lasted me like 3 or 4 days. And then I quit. I started chewing gum and praying a lot. Whenever I wanted a cigarette, I would pray and or chew gum. And I would try to keep busy. I never had another cigarette since. And that was because of him. He brought me through a lot of victories. And God is very good. Unfortunately, it's us that are not very trusting or obedient. And it's easy to fall out of those things. Even if we come to know it. We get distracted. There's a lot of distractions, you know. Laptops, notebooks, tablets, phones, smartphones, I should say. Games. It's probably one of my biggest ones. I still enjoy my games. I do try to limit myself very much. I don't know if I would succeed as well as I'd like, but so I got rid of that computer and I got something almost better. It's better to me. It's not built for games. You know, I'd say it's built more for music. I'd done a lot of free computer work for my dad. Actually, every time he asks me, I built the computer he uses. And, actually, I should say my cousin actually helped me do that because I was still learning at the time. I maintain it now for him, though. Whenever he has a problem, I pretty much jump, you know. I may not jump the same day, but I'm usually there within a week, or I let him know if I can't be there. Well, one particular time, somewhat recent, within a year anyways, I had taken his computer and decided to put Linux on it for him, a Linux operating system, which, for those of you that don't know, that just means he wasn't going to be getting any more viruses. And he was thrilled with this idea, so. And it also meant that I would not have to come for the silly things as much, you know. So I spent, 2 or 3 days doing that. I spent a good amount of hours doing that. Because I wasn't super familiar with Linux, so I had to learn some things. I'm still not, I'm still learning, but I don't think anyone knows it all regardless. Well, the amount of work I put into that, I don't remember how it came up. I surely didn't mean for it to come up to my dad as like he owed me anything. I happened to mention, that if he had taken this to a shop to have done it, that it probably would have costed him, $400 or $500 easy. Because I probably put 20 hours into it. Because I didn't just put Linux on there, I also put a couple of virtual machines because his computer can do that. It has like 12 gigs of RAM and a quad-core processor. And that way he could still use Windows if he wanted, and so could my sister. Probably at the same time if they wanted to even. But anyways, I actually set it up to where they could log into my dad's computer from his laptop and such, from Travis's laptop. But anyways, they don't even use that feature. But I mentioned that, and I don't know, I guess something struck my dad to pay me. He didn't pay me in like money, but he had these speakers. I'm looking at them right now, probably obvious. And it's a Bose set of computer speakers, and he had wanted a set that was for both TV and computer, and he had gotten another one of those tubes, and he really liked that, and it was a lot cheaper actually. He just paid these off, and I had just said to him, I said, hey, if you ever get rid of these, I would like them, and I meant, I would pay him for them, I'm not sure if I made that clear. But anyways, he said, well, you want them? I said, well, if you're going to get rid of them, I just said I would like them, And he said, well, you can have them if you can get that other speaker to work for both my TV and my computer. And I said, yeah, I can do that. So I didn't have the stuff with me, just needed one cord, and they didn't have one. I knew I did at home. So it was probably a couple of days later, I brought that cord over, showed him that it worked, and I started to pack up these speakers, and he mentioned how much he paid for them, and I'm not going to reveal that, but that's when I stopped. I was like, that's a lot of money. You sure you want me to take these? And it's like, I started to feel like, there's just no way I can take. Yeah, I know I did that work for him, but that was a lot to pay for these, and it was right then that he insisted. I didn't expect that from my dad, He'd already done so much for me. I actually use this laptop I have as more like a desktop. I've gotten an ergonomic keyboard because I type a lot. My hands were starting to bother me. I'd heard about, an ergonomic keyboard can relieve the stress in your hands, the pain that can be associated with typing. And I can type really fast, so it has helped a lot. And then I ended up getting an ergonomic mouse as well. I suppose in some ways this computer system is way better to me than that other one I had, even though that one was definitely more for performance, gaming performance. This one is not at all. Of course, simple games, I guess. Probably gotten a little off track here. I was trying to get at that. I gave up that computer, and then I ended up with this one, and I didn't expect that. I guess I should have. I used my gifts in computers, and now, not that I am, excel above everyone or anything like that in computers. Those banquets, I've gone back and served on teams to help other people experience Jesus in the same ways that other people helped me to. I've served in another number of roles, but one that seems to be my most popular of late is the computer tech person. So I get to make sure that all the videos that are needed for the talks, or just slideshows, whatever, PowerPoint presentations, whatever they need. God's been, of late, he's been on talking to me in his word, and dreams, and through other people, telling me that that I need to teach. Oh my gosh, I keep saying it over and over again, and I tutor at college now. I love tutoring, and I get paid for that. And it's like I get paid to do something I love. And I actually through some kind of email from one of my instructors, I got hooked up with a gentleman near the college who needed help with computers and his phone and such. Elderly gentleman. He pays me very well for that. So I go there and I teach him about his computer and his phone. So I mean, yeah, I'm supposed to teach. I'm already teaching. I guess it is. I'm so young. I'm looking over here because the moment I said that, I have some letters that people have written me from either from the banquets or other things from tutoring, and one of them includes a verse. Well, not just one of them, but specifically. It's like if God could not have provided for everything, you know? He sure did. And you can't even let me use that excuse that I'm too young. I'm trying to remember where this is at. I know it's right back here. There. Well, early on when I started to have that doubt, I guess, I'm too young to teach God's word or whatever, he brought me this verse through a lady that I don't even know, and to this day I don't even know her. She wrote me this letter to thank me for my service at that great banquet, and she put this verse in it. It's from 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. In the King James Version it says, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers, in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity." Another version says, "Not to let anyone look down on you because you're young." And that's what I was doing. Heck, I was even looking down on myself because I was young. I am young. As far as to teach, I mean, I don't know cannot think of many preachers or teachers of God's Word that are as young as me. I'm not going to sit here and say there's none, because I don't know everyone. I'll tell you, people don't put a lot of faith in the younger generations. And I can understand why. I guess another reason, though, is because of, I know one of the topics he would have me teach on. It's how to love like Jesus. And how does a man be qualified to do that? And if I could use that as an excuse, that would be great, but then he tells me, well, a man doesn't. It's a group of people that does it. So when I go to teach, there would be other people, and we would teach each other. That would be the consensus of it. I mean, it would be from his word, you know. From examples, from personal experiences, testimonies, from failures and tears. I mean, honestly, it would be tough, I'm sure. I posted on Facebook about it even. I don't get on Facebook at length. But I do post there every day. With scriptures, trying to encourage anyone that would read them. Posted on there that I knew God wanted me to teach. That He wanted me to teach how to love like Jesus, and that if anyone was interested to comment and join me in prayer, as in to prepare for that, to have God prepare us for it. I don't know if I was that clear about that, but Travis liked it. No one ever commented. So I figured it just wasn't God's time yet. Or maybe I just approached it the wrong way. tell people that I've told a couple people my story. And people that know me more than once tend to try to put me on some kind of pedestal. And I'm not perfect. I mean, I still struggle with things that Jesus would not have. I just want to serve him. I want to make him happy. I want to tell him I love him every day. Even tell him about my day. I give him all the praise and all the glory. And you know what? Like I said, I'm not perfect, so sometimes I try to glorify myself. And I surely don't want that. Not in my heart of hearts, but in this flesh. Anyone that knows should have an understanding for that. Never made a video before. Not really sure where to go from here. I know I can post this on YouTube, share it on Facebook. Well, that's probably what I will do. I know how to do that. I've come to a point where I'm willing to teach if anyone wants to be taught. God said, make disciples. I'm not sure if I'm ready, but plenty of times I've taken a step and fall flat on my face. And I'm sure I'll do it again. But God helps me back up every time. He's always faithful. I guess you can probably see in my room that I try to surround myself with reminders too, because I mean, how easily we forget. You actually can't even see the half of it, but it's really not the point, huh? If my story touched any of you, if it means anything to you, I hope it helps. Whether that's hope or to know that God is there, does care, even when maybe it seems like he doesn't, or he's not. And if anyone is interested in starting the teaching, whatever that lessons would be, let me know. And we'll just start praying about it. And maybe even think about Jesus loved us so much that he died on that cross. And that at every torturous moment he could have stopped it. And he had the power to stop it. And if that had been me or you or Fred down the street, at a word, if he said it, it happened, And he knew what had to be done. And that's how he loved. At least for now. God bless you all.